Good evening, and welcome to another hair-raising episode of Deep Balls. I'm your host, Brandon Rogers, and with me, I am joined by the spookily change-angling Jonathan Hinman. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello.
How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good.
It's a spooky episode we have here. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, I think my good feelings are just kind of the first act of my horror film life.
And let's not forget, sitting on my left here is the gravely grim-reaping Gabriel Gonzalez. Oh, gosh, and he is looking dapper and a button down.
I've got buttons.
It's a button.
It's got dapper.
And it's dapper, yes. Tonight we are going to be talking about the paranormal. Witnessed encounters of unexplained apparitions, one of the greatest unanswered questions of humankind.
What's that?
Do ghosts exist? Do they? Do you? First of all, I guess I'd like to open the room to both of you. Do either of you believe in ghosts?
Gabriel?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
Every day.
Oh, that's quite an admission here.
Okay.
There's not a consensus on this? Like, this is a question?
Well, I don't know. Jonathan, how do you feel?
I don't believe in ghosts per se.
Oh,
I believe that people believe they saw ghosts.
Okay, this
There
is
you
good.
go,
So we have
you
two
know?
opposing oppositions. I am quite agnostic on the matter. I believe, I've experienced some things that could be described as quite ghastly. But here's the skinny. I haven't experienced enough to quite double down on my confirmation and my belief of the supernatural. So
It's a hard thing to prove.
I think I'm sitting in between both of you, both metaphorically and quite literally. And I'm still trying to figure out where the smell is coming from. But we'll get to the end of that by the end of this podcast. Let's focus on the topic.
It was me.
Gabriel, you believe... Okay, well, there it is. Mystery
Stuff and
solved.
Sam reference
Happy
for y'all.
Halloween. Gabriel, how... you believe in ghosts. Tell us why you believe in ghosts.
All right. This is the unfair part. Is that I imagine, Jonathan, do you not believe in ghosts because you've never had your own?
Correct. And I've had a couple experiences that I then, and I know people who've had experiences where I was like, that is definitely a projection. And this is the subconscious at work. And that's amazing and beautiful and profound. I don't know why we can't just acknowledge that. It doesn't have to be a real ghost. It can be like, I felt like I saw a ghost. And so I think I've had enough of those experiences that just kind of made me think like, I'm more interested in that explanation.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of
with respect.
You definitely are. For those of you who don't know this, Jonathan of the three of us is hands down the logic factory. Oh my God. He is. Everything is very logical to him, and I can understand how you can sort of dismantle any of those experiences and come up with a logical explanation.
Right, but those are still beautiful. I mean, thank you.
They are beautiful.
But they were also viewed from the outside, but like you're hearing a story. And most of the times that I've ever heard ghost stories until I had my own, I would hear the story and then I'd go, yeah, right. Like, come on. You're not going to
right.
It's impossible. What they're saying is clearly they just had an emotional moment, or whatever you call it. Like it's all in the head.
It's interesting.
A lot of it too could be, I hear a lot of stories and I'm like, oh, that fucker just had sleep paralysis.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know, sleep paralysis, and I'm very, very layman's-ing it here. I don't know exactly what it is, but I've experienced it a handful of times in my recent life. When you go to bed, and apparently, if your sleep cycle isn't consistent, or if you're kind of disobeying your body with giving it too much or too little sleep, I don't know exactly how it works, but your mind essentially wakes up before your body does. When you go to sleep, your spinal cord releases a fluid that paralyzes your body, so you don't sleepwalk or you don't live out your. So your mind wakes up, but when your body is still paralyzed, I guess a part of your brain is activated or something, and you might to where you not only hallucinate something in the room with you, but you hallucinate something quite terrifying, which is really like if there is a God, that is a sick joke on our anatomy to be able to, or our psychology to be able to think of, and see these things. So yeah, people just wake up paralyzed and see something horrible. It's usually some kind of a demon sitting on them or standing at the foot of their bed. And this usually happens to people about once in their lifetime. And so most of the ghost stories I hear about sound very similar. I woke up and I couldn't move, and there was someone standing, or someone,
Right.
I remember I had a friend who said he saw like some woman at the foot of his, or at the door of his bedroom, just screaming and slamming the door over and over.
Fucking horrifying.
I know. And
my God.
And for the longest time, he thought it was real until he learned that it was sleep paralysis. And
So he would wake up in his bed, and he'd be looking at the door, and there'd be a woman slamming and screaming.
Yeah.
That's fucking, and they can't move.
Yeah. And if you talk to anyone else who's had, and you can't move. You can barely even like you can't even scream, because when it's happened to me, I've tried to vote like help or trying to say something. You can barely even. It's hellacious.
Well, how does it resolve? Are you like, wow, I'm stuck here, and I guess go back to sleep? And
usually it just lasts for like a minute or so. It's not long. It just lasts for just maybe even less than that.
Do you end up falling back asleep confused about whether or not that was a dream or
you break the paralysis, like you snap out of it and you can move all of a sudden. I know someone who hit his wife. He was sleeping next to her, and he was paralyzed. And he said he saw he hallucinated that there were like spiders crawling on his wife, and he couldn't move. And then once he finally could move, he like accidentally hit her. Mm-hmm. So you do snap out of it like suddenly. And if you see videos on YouTube, people having sleep paralysis, that you can hear them moaning, but then you can see when they break out of it.
Oh my God! Videos of people having sleep paralysis.
Yeah, and it's.
I have my own.
What happened?
I remember and it happened, I think, once. So this is it, but it happened. Mm-hmm. I was in my bed, and you ever like position your head like at the edge of the bed so that you're, I don't know.
So you're facing outward.
Yeah, you're kind of, but you're like literally on the edge of it, so that your head is kind of like, you're half outside.
Right.
Half in. But that gives you the perspective that you can see like the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember,
so your face is right at the edge of the bed.
You can see. And I remember at the side of the bed, I could see this spider slowly moving towards my head,
crawling up the side of the bed toward your face.
And I remember I couldn't move, and it's just, but I see this hairy, large spider.
Right.
And I remember immediately thinking, like, I'm gonna count to 3, and on 3, I'm gonna get up. And I said, 1, 2, 3, and I immediately got up, turned on the light. And I was like, what did I just experience? Like, I know that, and the spider wasn't there, of course. And I knew that it wasn't real. I knew that somehow what I had seen was not, and it is horrifying to wake up and not be able to move.
Has that ever happened with you, Jonathan?
To a slight degree, yes. I've had times where I was like, I don't really feel able to move. Like I'm being more perfectly still than I normally am. Like why?
Right.
And where I have to count down to move again. But it's never been such a struggle. I've always just been like, okay, well, I think I don't know why. I'm gonna get up in 3, 2, 1. All right. I don't know why I counted down. Like I'm in this hallucinatory state. But I've never been like, nope, I was trying and unable to. It's never been a big deal for me.
For me, it's been both times. I've only had it twice, and both times were kind of scarring for like the next month or two afterward.
I remember.
You don't get a good night's sleep for the next few weeks after, if it's really that's like I the first time I was sleeping on my side and I woke up, I couldn't move, and I could feel someone spooning me from behind. Someone being, and they were cradling, cuddling me, and I couldn't even move and turn around and see who it was. And then I realized, this is that sleep paralysis thing. And you just wait it out. You wait a couple, you wait a minute or so, and then you can move. And
that's so interesting. You have like a real feeling created from behind you.
Right. And and then recently, a few months ago, I woke up and I saw some dude just standing at the foot of my bed, and it just terrified me. So I bought an eye mask, like a sleeping mask. So I just go to sleep at night, and if I ever have it again, because these last 2 occurrences were fairly recent. I just sleep with an eye mask so I don't wake up and see anything. Nice. It's like weird to have to go to bed afraid of your own delusions possibly haunting you that night.
Right.
But there are times also where it's like it isn't. There are like stories that I've heard or things that have happened to me where it's like, I don't know if that was sleep paralysis. There's other like my grandfather passed away when I was 3 years old, and my parents didn't tell me because at the time apparently I wasn't aware of the concept of death. And so that was like my introduction to death. But before they told me,
like we delayed this and delayed this.
right. Like but like when like about a day after he passed away, like I saw him in my room. I don't remember seeing this, but I came to my mom, and apparently I had seen my grandfather in my bedroom. It was just casual. It was just like, oh, he's in here, and she was like, oh well, and then she had to explain what happened.
That's so funny that she chose that moment too. She's like,
well,
that would be the moment, though.
Well, I mean, she only explained it to me because she had to. At this point, it was like, okay, that wasn't your grandfather, or that maybe that was him.
And that's a memory that you live with
so
today. Like, you remember having this experience?
Vaguely, vaguely. I don't really remember seeing him there, but I do remember as a kid a similar story, and it could be the same thing where there's someone was in my room. But I mean.
So there are memories from like when I was 4 that I swear when I was 7 I could really recall them very vividly, and now I've kind of lost. Like, oh dang, I don't remember how I remembered it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like I remember now having that memory.
I more remember the way I was remembering it rather than the actual real memory, and I miss that certainty.
I wish you could get back some of the details of that. Yeah, it's interesting. When I was a kid, I experienced horror deeply. I was deeply afraid when I was scared. I just remember the feeling of like terror some nights, and I mean, things really. I mean, we underestimate how kids take things, because
I was convinced that at night in the dark of your room, like that was a place where like you would be able to see
perfect
it. Like that's the perfect time that you would see it, that you'd be conscious of it. I remember I was too afraid of it, and I would have like a little hole of air to breathe through. Like I would create like my own.
I did that too.
And the sheets were enough. Like somehow that little extra layer was like enough to protect you from the outside world.
Right.
And I would make like a
snorkel.
Yeah, like I didn't need it for my eyes. I didn't need shit for that. That's your nostril.
Because you can only last maybe 10, 20 seconds under the covers before that air just becomes unbreathable.
Right.
And I remember having to ventilate. But dude, I remember that too, sleeping under my covers because I was afraid of like just anything. I was afraid of anything seeing.
And they call it, the monsters under the bed or the monster in the closet. I get that. That's how we all like childlike it. But come on, there was like the dark. Like that's where it is.
Yeah.
What you can't see.
I had a lot of trouble sleeping as a kid, and I was always like crawling in my parents' bed or like terrorizing my babysitter because it was like, no, the velociraptors are coming. Like, no, the such and such is coming. Like, no, it's here. It's under my bed. Did you check everywhere? It was like logically, there's a place that you didn't check.
Right.
So. That's where it would be if it's here. Like there's no certainty, but I was a little wuss of a kid.
Imagination.
I remember my parents being like, I came in crying. I was like, well, I had a nightmare, and they're like, no, okay, oh my gosh, tell us what happened. I was like, it was a pink bat, and he had a broken wing, and they're like slowly walking toward you, a little bat.
Oh, that sounds nice, though. I know. I would like to have a nightmare about this pink bat.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I misunderstood that bat.
I used to have nightmares of. So there's this guy that worked at the Blockbuster video. For the 90% of you listening to this, Blockbuster is a video rental store where you would go and you would rent a movie and bring it home, and it was a whole exciting process where you get really excited because you'd all agree on the movie and you'd all go home together and you're talking about the movie and your expectations. Oh, and you probably got a shitload of candy because their candy there was incredible.
Yeah.
They had such a selection.
That was the time.
Oh, it was great. And then you go home and you pop that shit. Everyone gathers around the TV. No one does that anymore. They gather around the TV. Anyways, where was I going with this? There was a guy who used to work at my Blockbuster who had a lazy eye. And
great local figure.
The off chance that he is listening to this, I deeply apologize, as deep as my balls. But
deep ball.
I had a nightmare when I was a kid. He had a lazy eye, and I went to the Blockbuster and he kidnapped me. And I just remember his eye. Like he looked like Pennywise from the new It with the lazy eyes, and Sorry, I feel like I'm just like insulted. I don't mean to be insulting.
Right. No, you're insulting.
And to the listener.
But like, it wasn't just the eyes.
It
was his grin. It was his everything. He was just a very scary guy, and he kidnapped me, and I bit off his finger, and I woke up. Then when I was in high school, it was about 13 years later or so. I don't know. Much longer later, I'm in high school, and I have a dream, and he comes back in the dream. And he says, "Remember me, Brandon?" And he holds up his hand, and the missing finger is gone. And he's like, "I've missed you." And I've never had someone haunt one of my dreams from a previous dream. That was terrifying. Like I said, like kids are capable of like, conjuring up horribly terrifying concepts and scenarios, and
Especially you.
something's fucked in my head. Ever since I was a kid, I've had the worst. When I have nightmares, they're quite horrible. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean. But we're not here to talk about nightmares. We're talking about villains.
Actually,
we're talking about real things.
That's coming up. We promise.
According to Jonathan, he's still his beliefs on ghosts are still not on the table right now.
Explain. All right.
I mean, clearly you've heard a couple stories here. I mean, how you're. you still feel.
It's such a subjective, thing. Like, everyone who feels strongly has had a very intense story of some kind, but I haven't, and I always explain things away. So maybe parallels the way I feel about religion, and not to diminish it, its importance to people and the good positive effects it can have in understanding things, but I personally don't subscribe to.
Even having your own personal ghost story doesn't mean it's going to be able to explain what that meant. That was one of the strangest feelings also, is that even after my experience, I couldn't say what that meant. What does that mean? What I saw.
Right.
It might not be the ghost definition.
And maybe you need to explore that for years. Maybe it takes years to understand.
This is the thing that opened my eyes, that there was something.
Or maybe you never do.
And it might be not a ghost. Maybe it's just some other explanation. But it's I know that there is something to these stories. It's not just we're just, or how maybe it is. Maybe we are conjuring it in our minds. But then how powerful is our mind?
Right. It's for me, a question is, so in all these ghost stories, what do ghosts want? And it always seems that there's something unresolved from their life, right. Or there's great trauma. There's some great emotional event that prompts this, and it's what does the ghost then want from the people that the ghost interacts with, and what do we want from the ghost as listeners, and what do we want the ghosts to want? You know what I mean? Right, it starts to, and then I start to understand maybe this is in terms of it's like a great warning, like a great ghost story is like a great warning to by the way, don't murder your family, don't.
Which adds another layer of horror.
That's a movie though. Life is more mundane. Maybe the ghost stories that actually happen are just what Brandon said was, I just remember my grandfather in my room.
What I think is terrifying, regardless of intention or motive behind the ghost or lack thereof, I just. My carnal fear of it is that there is an entity, a presence that is not expected, that is not supposed to be there, that is acknowledging my presence. It's looking back at me. Regardless of why they're there, it's, that element is still, it's the same reason people are afraid of peeping Toms. It's how does your brain process what's not supposed to be there right now? And you kind of go into a bit of shock at first when you see something like that. Didn't something similar happen to you with your cousin?
I want to tell mine then.
Go for it.
So I was, I don't know what you call it, but when your grandfather's sister passes, I guess you would call her a great-grandmother, a grandmother?
Great-aunt,
Great-aunt. Yeah.
Wonderful aunt.
Great-aunt, yeah. Well, she was. But she passed, and we went to her house, and she lived on the other side, or in the middle of the island. And we were staying there for the night. We were kind of just cleaning it out. And I was sharing the bed with my cousin's boyfriend. And we happened to be placed in her room. Where my great aunt.
Where she used to sleep.
Let me pick this up. We're in her room. She had just passed. And now we're she's gone. And this was where she lived. And I remember we looked at each other we just ended up looking through all the cupboards and looking through all the desk drawers and reading her yearbook and seeing a photo from 1930 when she had graduated high school. 1930 and she was graduating high school.
Damn.
It's a totally different, totally different lifetime. Totally different. And she looked, exactly picturesque from those times. And then now we head into sleep, and I'm laying there and I'm kind of just thinking, just going through my mind. And my eyes are open. It's a dark room. I'm laying down, but I'm thinking. My eyes are open. And then suddenly I see this shadow, this dark figure at the door. And I'm kind of just staring at it because I'm not really thinking about anything. I just noticed there's this dark figure. And then it starts to move closer, like a shadow that moves closer through the room. And as it gets closer to me, it starts to turn into a shape. And I could see this lady. this lady with like a similar, like a hair and like her legs and arms and like a bit of a nose and eyes. Like I could see, but not define. And it gets right next to me on the bed and starts staring at me. Now here's the thing. I was in a half dream, you know, I was kind of just thinking, what? I didn't think anything of it. I'm just staring at this thing. And suddenly I hear the guy, he says, Gabriel, do you see that? And immediately I get up and I turn on the light and I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Do I see that? And he's like, well, I don't want to sound crazy, but I saw a lady come into the room, come next to you, stare at you, and then start like looking at you like side to side, like shaking, like just curiously looking at you. And it gave me chills. It was like I that's what I was seeing the whole time. And if he hadn't been there to confirm it, I would have thought that I was just looking at like whatever, like I'm just daydreaming or night dreaming, whatever. Like I'm just in
right. We gotta call him.
But he saw what I saw, and then I was like, well, then that's why this is a little different. I don't know if it's a ghost. I don't know if it's like her spirit, but it's like, wait a minute.
Doesn't matter what it was. The confirmation that he also saw something that you were questioning was in your own head.
That he was there.
That's what made it terrifying.
So that's real. What is that? I don't know. Is that a ghost? I don't know, but it's real, man. Like that happened.
It is. And see, those are the stories I'm talking about where it's like, how do you explain that? There's no, and there, it is hard to put, there's so many variables and elements to the situation, but it is, I had something similar happen to me at Brushy Peak, which is a hiking trail in Livermore. And my friend and I she and I went on this trail together. I hadn't seen her in years. We decided, let's go for a walk at Brushy Peak. And we walked too far and the sun had gone past the horizon. And we should probably head back. So, when you're in nature and like the sun has gone down for, it's probably, 5-10 minutes past the horizon, the sky is barely lit. And you can everything turns into a shape, right? And we're walking down the trail. No one's around. It's just in the middle of nowhere. And we walk past this object. And as I'm passing it, I look at it and I'm like, what the hell is it? It looks like it could be a cat or a skunk, something. It looked like a creature, but I'm like, it could be a rock. And I just want to say, I was perfectly sober during this moment. And then the thing stood up on two legs. Imagine like a very tall rabbit, but it was taller than a rabbit. It stood up to about 2.5, 3 feet tall. And it was about 10 feet away from the path. It wasn't super close. And this thing stood up. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I don't know what it is. And then my friend looked at me and she goes, what the fuck is that? And I said, you saw that? She goes, what the fuck animal even is that? And I said, no, just keep walking. And to this day, we still talk about it. Yeah. We don't know because it wasn't a mountain lion. There was no animal that it looked, and it stood up on two legs and it was very thin. I to this day, it haunts me like what we walked past, but it was just the way she described it. She's like, yeah, it stood up. You saw it too. And we were both staring at it. But yeah, again. See, look at that. I just told a story and I was convinced of it. Then you told that story in my brain, even with my own story, was like, yeah, but it could have been a big fucking rabbit. It could have been a big, skinny, two-legged rabbit. It was wet, and that's it. And that's what happens with these stories. Even me having that experience, a week later, I was trying to be like, man, maybe I was just tired and he was just, even with that, it's like, no, there is no explaining him. Why did he say that? Mm-hmm. And yet, I still don't even believe my own story. You get what I mean? Right.
So it's like, now you telling your story, it's like, give me a break, bro. That's a fucking kangaroo.
I wish.
A fucking kangaroo.
I heard that kangaroos are quite deadly.
Yeah.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
I think you were telling me this.
Oh, no, I think it was Sam Kinkin.
Oh, Sam Kinkin. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're seeing like videos on...
Yeah, that's right.
Of kangaroos and like kangaroos with claws at the door, like on a glass window, like a 6 foot tall kangaroo just like staring in your house, like in the door with like 3-inch velociraptor claws, just like scratching the window. It's like that horrified me for sure. And it's probably what you saw in Runyon Canyon.
Runyon Canyon. I don't know. I think. I don't know. People, confirmation stories like that. There's no explanation to them. I don't like anything that's unexplained. Like things that aren't, there's no explanation to them, but okay, for instance,
They're difficult to live with.
right. I usually don't talk about this story because it just creeps me out so much.
Yes.
But it's also kind of like controversial, if I even should. I mean, I guess it's not controversial. People talk about this all the time.
Y'all hear that?
Do that.
This is controversial.
It's not controversial. It's a real person, and I don't know, but the Elisa Lam case.
Ooh, I remember.
You remember
Tell
that
me about
case
this.
back in
Yes.
2013?
Yeah.
It sends chills down my spine even just thinking about this.
I was just laughing because he said the name immediately, and I thought it was a closer person.
No, you hear this story.
Okay, go for it.
Just for those of you who do know the Elisa Lam case, who have heard about it on the news, it was like in the headlines back in 2013, February. I worked before I did YouTube. I worked at a law firm, and it happened to be the law firm that handled her case. And so we were working on her case, and I heard about it from a friend of mine, and I thought it was ridiculous when I heard about this story, and I started Googling it, and then I found myself like up at 3 a.m, like not just Googling, but now I'm like researching this thing, and I was following this story because it was happening at the time. And then I started working at this law firm, and it happened to be the law firm that was handling her case, and it just felt weird because I just started working at this firm. And in fact, the friend who told me about this case was from my last job, so that's how recent of a switchover. Like she tells me about the Elisa Lam story, and then I'm working at the firm, and now
Gotta run.
And and we're like handling. I'm seeing the evidence with my own two eyes. I'm seeing and it was very scary.
Like I'm touching it, like I'm throwing it away back to it.
So for those of you who don't know, I'm like making sure my lips are all over this goodness. So for those of you who don't know about the Elisa Lam case, in 2013 there was a tourist from Vancouver, her name Elisa Lam, and she was staying at the Cecil Hotel. What the fuck was that?
What was that?
Was that your phone?
Something outside.
I think,
Or was something outside? Okay. Creeping myself out here.
Guys, did you hear that? Yeah. We three heard it.
At the
Tell us if you heard it at Deep Balls Podcast.
I don't even know what the hell that thing was. So she checks it. I forget how old she was. She was like 23. I don't know. I forget how. She's a young girl. She's a Chinese girl from Vancouver. She checks in to the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, which any American Horror Story fans, they based the hotel season off of this place because the Cecil Hotel is infamous for like an irregular amount of people who over the last almost century have died in this building. People like would check into this place during the Depression and commit suicide. Like they would pick this place because during the Depression people come here and try and make a big buck in Los Angeles, and a lot of people didn't, and so the suicide rate in this building was huge. And just the murders, this guy killed I forget however many prostitutes during his stay there. It's just a very dark place, and so for some reason she picks this as the hotel to stay at, and she goes missing. I want to say a day or two into her stay. And no one knows where she was in very close touch with her family. And do you hear that, Ian? Mm-hmm. What the hell is that? Oh, I don't know. Anyways, so
someone working nearby.
Right. Well, as long as we're all it's the confirmation that makes it scary. We all heard that. So she goes missing because her parents kept in close contact with her, but she one day just stopped answering the phone calls, and so they called they even flew down to Los Angeles, and she was declared missing. I forget however soon, but they pulled up some security camera footage from the elevator, and this is the last bit of footage they have of her. Have I told you this, Jonathan?
Mm-mm.
Wow, I can't believe I haven't told you this story. So it's on YouTube. The video went super viral because it's very eerie what happens in this video. There's no sound. It's just an elevator camera. There's absolutely no audio, so you don't know what is happening really. But she walks into the elevator. She looks like she wasn't going out. She looked like she was in her sleepwear. She's just not she clearly, I don't know. She gets in the elevator and she quickly presses the door shut button and then hides around the corner as if someone's coming after her. So she's hiding, and then she keeps poking her head out the lip of the elevator and looking to see if something's in the hallway, and then hiding again in the elevator, and the doors aren't closing. So she's hiding in that little front corner of the elevator right by the door.
Oh my God.
And she so then you think, okay, you can assume that maybe she was kidnapped, maybe that there was an assailant or some other person involved. It starts to get weird when she begins talking to someone else in the elevator who isn't there. She is not just talking, but using hand gestures. Like she's clearly directing an outward dialogue to another individual, and they're not in the elevator.
What's the tone of it?
She looks rather urgent. She's not having a Sunday afternoon convo. She is quite...
almost manic.
Almost, exactly.
Not like manic and like hyper, but there was like a certain level of insanity going on. Like you're watching something creepy.
So eventually, poor Elisa gets off the elevator and exits. And it's immediately after she gets off the elevator that the doors finally work and close.
Right, she was clicking
the entire time she was in the elevator, the doors would not shut.
Right.
The entire time. I've never heard of an elevator do that. And then she gets off, and then they close, and then it opens again on it. So now they didn't just close. The elevator started working again. Fine. It went to another floor. It opens up on another floor, and so that's very strange. She's just gone without a trace. There's no sign of a struggle. Like she just gets off the elevator and vanishes. But that's not why this story is terrifying. About a week later, like Yelp reviews and everything about this hotel. Like you can see, I remember seeing it on TripAdvisor and whatnot. People started complaining about the water coming out black for a few seconds before turning clear in the faucets in the shower. I remember reading a Yelp review that someone had a rash on their back from showering in the showers there and like they would have to wait a few seconds for the water to not be black when they turn on the faucet. Well, so a maintenance guy goes up to the roof where they keep, this is an old building, and they keep these couple of water cisterns on the roof that, it's all gravity, pumped. So all the water in the building's on this tank on the roof. The guy goes up there, opens the hatch at the top of the tank, and there is I think it's like a week or 2 weeks. I forget, she was in there for so long that they could barely identify her. Her skin apparently had swollen to the texture of tofu and just black water. And so now all these questions came out. The news started going crazy over the story. Everyone was talking about it on Reddit. Yeah. It was going everywhere. It's what the fuck happened to Elisa Lam? Because how the hell did she get in there? How did she get up to the roof, know that the tanks were up there? And she did not seem suicidal. She did not seem like this seemed totally out of her character. So it was right around this time that they found the body up there that I had started working at the law firm. And I remember seeing, because she's dead, so now the family, it's not a matter of, the police already ruled it as a unsolved, or I think it was an accident. They ruled it as accidental. Here's the thing, though: the door was shut when she gets in, and the water, I think it rests the water level is about 3 feet below the top of the tank. So even if you do get in, how do you close that door behind you? It was not easy. And
nor would it be easy to drag a whole body up there.
Right, exactly. Undetected, with no evidence.
In the moonlight, silhouetted.
Well, it gets even weirder. A lot of the people who were staying in the hotel I remember that same week there was a tuberculosis outbreak, kind of in the area.
What year is this again?
This is 2013.
Yeah, right now.
There was like a lot of people were getting tuberculosis in that area. And I remember seeing that on the news, and I remember thinking oh, that's where that hotel is. And it's so weird. The test that you take to see if you have tuberculosis, the name of the test is her name backwards. It's Lam Elisa, spelt the same way. And it's just weird that I don't know. It's just it creeps me out. Hearing how all this stuff connects. But then it gets even weirder because then I visited her Tumblr, and the last thing she posted on Tumblr were pictures of rooftops and pictures of, and she was talking about water and just very, very weird stuff. And I just remember seeing Yeah, it was very scary. We even went to, as you know, working with the firm, they sent me to Vancouver to go talk to her family and get a testimony from them on camera. So I flew to Vancouver, and they brought me to her room, and everything was untouched in her bedroom. It was exactly the same. And it was just so sad because she did not seem like a girl who wanted to die. She had so many...
That one is iffy, though, because people never seem like the type to kill themselves.
Totally. But she never, like... She just... If you could picture the happiest person in the world, and of course I know you can never tell.
You know the worst part? You're not going to tell the biggest part of the story, is it? You can't, right?
About the...
Yeah, and that's the saddest part. Like, that's really the reason why that story is, like, weird to me.
Yeah, there's just stuff that, working really close with the case, I saw that were... And it was just more weird stuff like that they just connected more dots but left no answer.
Right.
And that's what scares me the most, are things that are unsolved and things that have no answer. There's been a lot of theories about what happened to Elisa.
Another case of, was she just schizophrenic and needed like medication, or like was she? Because you make a good point. It's like, okay, so it's hard to do it yourself, but at the same time, he was saying like it's hard to also drag a dead body and do it. It's like both would be equally hard. Maybe one, So it's like,
and it's something like, it's like, especially with a mystery in a dark mystery like that, it just kind of like, you don't know what exactly happened, and you're left with some darkness was at play. Something very bad had infiltrated what seemed to be a happy world and caused this to happen. And then that's just extra scary. It's like, I have no idea what the form of that darkness was, but obviously it's lethal.
Something led to that, and we'll never know what that was. If it was self-inflicted or if there was another person involved. It's really...
Was it the devil? Was it insanity? Was it possession?
And
was it just a regular murderer? Was it what, but what form of the darkness?
And why there? Why at this hotel that's already so shrouded in darkness already,
Really caters to the superstition.
Well, what's also scary is like, how would she know that those tanks were... There's no way that some girl in her early 20s from Vancouver is going.
She could have discovered it. Maybe that was the first time she saw it. Maybe she went up there and was like, "This is how I'm going to do it." Actually, I don't know.
But it just seems
like why? Like, what's with this elevator scene?
If you were
that part is insane, though.
It's all super creepy.
Yeah. So it's the water tank thing by itself isn't necessarily quite.
Yeah.
It's that mixed with the elevator footage.
The elevator, because I remember when you told me about this case when I got to the law firm, and I remember thinking. I saw the videos online and I looked at it, and immediately what always happens is I try to see the possibility that it's a real ghost story, or is it just... Right. Is it just...
Where are the holes? Blah, blah, blah.
Where is this just a crazy girl who's having...
What would creep me out is I would be working with this case very late at night. Sometimes we would leave the firm at like 6 or 7 p.m. and then I would get home, and I live in an apartment building that looks very similar to the Cecil Hotel. I live in a building that looks like the fucking Tower of Terror. And I remember riding that elevator by myself late at night, coming home from work, having just looked at that footage all day, and then... I don't know, it just gets under your skin when you leave the place. Because it's a scary story by itself, but then when your life brings you closer to it, all of a sudden, it just felt like a weird coincidence. That job has brought me close to so many things that ended up being like that's where I met Gabriel. I was working at that firm. It's just, that firm was too many coincidences. It was creepy. But no, so again, this goes hand in hand with stories of just like, how do you, it's how do you explain it? And I mean, part of me loves unexplained mysteries, but also it's like, it is an itch that you'll never be able to scratch. And
and do we want to know what these things mean? Like, maybe there is a darkness out there. Or even, for example, like the great aunt story. Yeah, she's dead. But why? If she is a ghost, that doesn't make me happy to know that she's here for any reason. I thought that we were going to go to a cool place, but no, or nothing. But then to come back and this experience, I don't know, that doesn't sound like
I don't know. Version. It makes me have questions about like, what do you think of the afterlife, and how did you feel about your great aunt? And
I remember thinking,
what kind of like
I didn't necessarily enjoy that idea that she was there confused, because she looked confused.
So you can even register her facial expression.
I registered her movements, and her body language was that as if like, who's this stranger in my bed? That's what I felt.
Wow.
But this was all like I said, like that's the part where it's in my head because I don't know what the intention was.
Like, is that the way you would characterize her in life?
No, I didn't know her too well. She kind of had dementia and stuff.
Well, that's interesting that you saw her clear enough to register even that.
Right.
Like it wasn't just a figure.
No, it was not
like
just a figure.
You clearly could tell.
He gave more defined, like he could see like the hair and the eyes or whatever. But maybe that just means he could see that stuff better. But I know what I saw. It was real. And like I said, I wouldn't have thought anything. I would have woke up the next day and not told anybody. Because I was like, this is just like whatever.
It would be one thing if you both saw like a shadow or if you both saw something like that. But you guys are both clearly defining the same person that you looked at. That's insane. When I was about 15 years old, I did my first my first movie. It was called The Klein Mansion. That was the name of it. And my grandparents lived across the street from this very wealthy guy who he founded Klein Pianos. And he died in that house, and his wife later died in that house. And it just looks like a creepy, big, old house, like your typical haunted house. And so as when I was in high school and I first started getting really inspired to be a filmmaker, I wanted to do like a haunted house movie in the Klein mansion. Mm-hmm. And so my grandparents were good friends with the caretakers. They said, sure. And so I said, I'm going to bring my friends from school and they're going to help me film it. Is that okay? Oh yeah, sure. So I rounded up a team. It was such a cool day. I rounded up like 8 people. They were like different actors and like someone was like a sound person. It was like a whole crew. It was my first thing shooting. And we went to this house and the night before, I remember having a dream of like a woman telling me not to film there. Or saying like, don't, and of course you just think of it being like, oh, whatever. But when we got there, it was just one unexplained setback after another. Like the faucet, I remember it kept running and we'd have to keep turning it off and reshooting and like power would go out occasionally. And like, I just remember, but see, then again, nothing definitive happened where it's like, oh, that's a ghost.
And like, I wanted to be like, that's the lady. She's there, like turning off the power source.
Something happened. That was her.
Yeah, it's like that was clear, like
makes sense.
Scooby Doo.
But what's weird is that
Scooby Doo style for sure.
Yeah.
She told in the dream. She specifically said, she said, don't go anywhere that's private or that's my like private area or whatever. And in the kitchen, we found a doorknob in one of the drawers. Just a doorknob. And upstairs in the attic, there was a door with no knob.
Of course you did. So you guys.
Well, I didn't know it didn't look like a place.
I didn't know that's what she meant by don't go in the room with no knob.
It was fun. Like when you're 15 years old, it's exciting. True. Yeah, you want to you do the adventurous thing.
Oh yeah.
So we're like, oh my gosh, I wonder if this is. So we take the knob and we go upstairs to the attic and we open the doorknob. Of course, it fits and open it up. And of course, there's like women's clothing hanging and there's heels on the floor.
Oh boy.
And there was a shoebox, and it was weird because in the shoebox was a bunch of old checks on cash, just checks written to, I forget his first name, but his last name was Rogers, spelled the same way as mine. And I asked my grandparents about that, and they had no clue about it. And so probably but it was just so weird that like the secret knob to the secret room had like things with like Rogers on them, and
like a note saying, "I told you not to come in."
Right. And so I don't know. Like again, it's a story with not enough proof to like say because it could really just be all coincidence. I hate that shit. I hate that like there's nothing quite definitive enough, but it's still enough to creep you out. And it just seems like every ghost story is almost that, but
it's like smack of something really interesting and unexplainable, and your search for the full context will never be complete.
Right, and it's that unsatisfying conclusion that just I don't know that just it disturbs you. It disturbs me. I think I feel less so with alien stories. I think that. I don't know. Alien stories still creep me out, but I feel like they're also like ghosts. You can't lock your door from. Ghosts invade whatever hiding space you. I feel like aliens are more. They obey the laws of physics and reality.
Right, more. And there's something like. yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot that's different, but aliens, it's like what do they want? Are they here to live in harmony? Are they're obviously not. They're not here to just like destroy us with the touch of a button. It's something else. So
which seems just as creepy at times, though, because it's like if it's the negative, like if we're just in some experiment or something like that. Oh wait. Do you guys? All right. Do you believe in aliens?
Oh.
Do you not believe in ghosts, but you believe in aliens? Ever about them?
I believe that there are definitely aliens in the universe. Whether or not they're here on Earth, hard to say. Probably. Probably just because.
I don't know. I want to believe that there are aliens. I want that to be the situation.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Here on Earth.
Here
on Earth right now.
Well, maybe or just somewhere. Or, I don't know. I like the idea that we aren't the highest power. I like the idea that there is a power kind of, and because clearly if they're aware of us.
Benevolent.
Logic dictates that there is.
Okay, well, I can't follow logic right now. I'm just following my heart. So stick with me, folks. But like, you know, if aliens do know we exist and they're so much more advanced than we are, then clearly they're letting us live. They're clearly living with us in harmony or observing us peacefully. And you know, if an advanced species lets us live the way we, you know,
are they though?
It's either that or we're in Change in the Matrix.
Right.
Okay. Well, now we're going down the Matrix. My heart can't take all this. I'm just talking. I hope there's aliens, and I hope they're nice. I think they would be.
This one's a harder. Do you guys have an alien story? This is actually one that I don't hear usually as often.
Yeah, it is harder to have an alien story. I mean, it's also socially easier to have a ghost story. Like, all I'm saying is that something unexplained happens. Like, cool.
Yeah.
The aliens also implies the collusion, the conclusion. It's like, and I'm sure it was aliens.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I feel like even if it were an alien story, people would probably resort to ghosts. Like, if someone had an authentic alien story happen to them, I feel like more people would jump to the conclusion.
Like, that was probably just a ghost, bro.
Yeah.
Do you guys have one? Do you have a ghost story? Alien story.
Oh gosh, I don't have an alien story. Do you, John?
No, I don't have an alien story. I've thoughts on alien stories, but no, personally, I don't have an alien story.
All right,
Hit us, Gabe.
You. All right, now
everyone, buckle up.
Details once again. I don't know. I really don't. So, but I was on a roof one time, and yeah, all right. This is where I was on mushrooms. I was on mushrooms. I was definitely tripping.
Mushrooms.
Okay.
All right. It's all right. Yeah. Okay. That's like automatically disqualifies me, right? But still, once again.
But for real, if they're aliens, they would know that would be the perfect time.
I saw them. So I'm on the roof and I'm with some friends and we're just like staring off. And maybe there's a few of them talking, or maybe we're just staring off. I don't know. But I'm just looking at the stars, and then I see this one star kind of moving through the sky. But then it's like leaving this weird line behind it. And it was nothing. Like, once again, it says like, oh, it's a shooting star. Slow one. Shooting. And then it makes a perfect 90-degree turn and then like warp speeds out of the sky. So it's like, imagine a straight line, you're watching it, it's leaving like a certain line in the sky, so it keeps getting longer and longer, and then suddenly 90-degree turn, and then gone. And I remember immediately one of the guys who was up there, he was like, whoa, what was that? And I was like, wait, what did you... And once again, the self-confirmation thing where I was like, wait, what did you see? And he's like, yeah, I just saw this, like, you know, this strange thing moving across the sky. There was like a line, and then it got longer, and then it just shot out. And I was like, that's not... Do we have something that can do that? I mean, we might, but then I saw that. Mm-hmm. I saw something special. It's not a plane. That wasn't a plane. That wasn't a meteor, or, you know, a shooting star. It wasn't, you know, debris in the sky, a satellite. Like, no, it was...
It's tough because even if you have like an expert on planes, and you know they're like, no, there's no plane that we currently know of that can do that, but there are plenty of experimental planes that we really don't know about, military or otherwise.
And that one felt more like that. Like, I don't know if it was an alien, but I knew that it was something that it's not common knowledge, I should say.
Right, and you know, and I feel like that's kind of the point of alien stories, is that you're still like alien stories are weird because they're more rooted in science and they're less believed and less accepted. Like, you're extra crazy for an alien story versus a ghost story, and yet they like all are about like, no, I have this sighting, or there's like this photo. There's a lot more like.
But you've heard of like the theories of like the reptilian races and the Illuminati type deal.
I don't know that I've really. Yeah, I don't really know those theories.
Dude, I used to love these these sites. Like I used to, especially like right before 2012. Oh, no, way before that. Like 2006, and I was excited for 2012. I was like, bring it on! You know, like end of the world / aliens take over. And I would go into these sites, and I wouldn't believe it. It was just fun to read, and it was like conspiracy websites. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there was so many topics about aliens, and one of them was like, yeah, there's like a reptilian race that is in actual control of this place, and we all live under them. That makes no sense.
They're called the 1%.
It's a fight. Yeah, they're called. This is all crazy talk.
Once you get into the 1%, you start growing.
Like there are people who really believe in the aliens. You know, it's just like our ghost thing. We've never experienced the alien story, so it's so much easier to dismiss. Where for these people, it's like they have genuine beliefs because they feel like they've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a little scary. I mean, it's only scary because it's unknown. I think that honestly, like I said, if we're coexisting with something already, then clearly it's letting us grow our mold. You know, it's letting us populate and do our thing.
But that's under one assumption.
It could be right. Maybe they're harvesting us to eat us.
Harvesting is a strange one. But what if it's like a different thing?
We're just conducting a grand experiment.
Experiment. It makes the most sense, right? Mm-hmm. Like that we're a petri dish.
I would be terrified if I truly did believe in aliens living here on us. I would be scared to live in a house in the Nevada desert, like in the middle of nowhere. I remember driving to Vegas and seeing just like homes from like farms or whatnot, or I don't know why they were just houses that people would live in just in the middle of the desert, just out in the middle of nowhere. I would be scared of getting robbed. I'd be scared of it. I don't know how people can live. I'm also quite a pussy, needless to say, but I don't know. I feel like I would be fine living there until 3 a.m. when I can't sleep and I just think about all the horrible things that are coming for me.
Yeah.
And they're coming.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I mean, you ever seen those like, what was it? Ancient Aliens or whatever on Discovery Channel? Uh-huh. Oh my god, that thing was ridiculous. But that was the type of stuff they used to have on these conspiracy websites, right? And it's actually kind of fun. Like, what if something had come down before this civilization? Actually, it, you know,
right?
Maybe that's what we are.
There are a lot of things on this planet that are unexplainably built for the time period in which they hail from.
Stonehenge
is a big one. What's that place with all the balls that are like perfect spheres?
They actually, I heard that they actually might have defined that one.
Oh, really? The orb one?
Yeah, like there was something. Yeah, I've seen that. There was something about that. I'm not going to even try to answer it. But yeah, they did seem like it was like a natural occurrence where like balls would form on that island through like the lava. And it would harden into...
Oh, wow.
I mean, I don't know if that really makes any sense. But
well, balls can harden.
God damn it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I am thoroughly spooked out tonight. This is quite an evening. I
don't know what I'm projecting and what is real and...
Wait, but you guys are letting me go on the alien thing. You guys don't believe in aliens just because you've never experienced it?
I've never experienced dick with the alien stuff. I really can't attest to it. Man. I want to believe they're out there, though. And I've heard stories from friends that are... You know what's funny is that my friend's dad... in high school, my friend's dad, he was driving us home one day and he explained a very, very similar situation with his wife. He said he and she were stargazing one night and they saw a handful of stars do exactly what you said, where they were moving. They thought they were shooting stars and they started moving erratically. And so I hear stories like that, and then you have this very similar one and your friend was there to confirm it as well. You know, I can't say that I've experienced this shit, but the stories I've heard have been quite... compelling,
right? Yeah. And we go on. You know, if you go online, apparently there's pilots. See a lot of generals.
Oh, really? Pilots
are usually the main source of a lot of stories.
Stories of what they see when they're flying planes.
That they see it, and then here's the thing: like, then they obviously things look different in the sky. But then the argument is that a pilot should be able to recognize things. They should be able to recognize something that's abnormal in the sky.
Yeah, I can't handle jobs that put me in places where I could run into ghosts or aliens. I worked at a hotel. I worked at a hotel for about 6 years, and we had a banquet room. And someone passed away during a banquet. He was an old guy who had like a heart attack and died.
During like an event you were there for?
No, I wasn't. Well, I don't know if I was there when he passed. No, I was not there when he passed away, but I was there probably a few hours afterward because everyone was still kind of stirred up a little bit. And
Like, still great party.
Right. And
Good job on the flowering.
I remember that the next week, the smoke alarm kept going off in that room. But what's weird is that the smoke alarm was right above the table that the guy was sitting at. Mm-hmm. And so it would just go off like once every couple days. It would just, for no reason, just that. And that was a problem that we've never experienced before or after that situation.
Ghosts.
Was this guy a smoker?
This guy, well, here's the thing. He was smoking. He was one of those hot geriatrics. No, I don't know. And then someone killed themselves in one of our other rooms right by the front desk. And so it's weird. I would check people into that room and just not tell them.
Right. Wow. I never thought of that. It's not your responsibility. Yeah. It's like, somebody died.
Thinking like, good night. I hope. Glad I'm not
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, that was graphic. They had me photocopy his suicide note.
He had you
Wait. The police did. So the police came to the hotel.
Seems highly responsible.
He called his mom, his mom somehow knew where he was going to do it. So she called the police to the hotel. They get there with a fire truck. They had to break in through the window, like climb the ladder up to the window because he had the door dead bolted. And he had snorted a ton of crushed Benadryl and slit his wrist in the toe.
Oh my god!
Whoa!
Oh my god!
Yeah, and I remember the poor housekeeper who had to clean the room. Oh god! But the police had me photocopy the suicide note, and the only thing he was watching me photocopy it, so I couldn't read it. But I just remember the first lines were like, "It was dear mom," and the whole note was to his mom.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it was tragic, but still, same thing. Weird stuff would happen in that room. Like the housekeepers would complain of like just weird things happening, and it's funny because this wasn't a story that we really shared with most of the house. Like anyone who wasn't there that night, this wasn't really talked about with other shifts. And so I don't know. It's again, there's not enough proof to say that the fire, the smoke alarm, and the weird sounds from that room, there's no explanation for these things, but they're also not impossible either to just happen. Right. So,
and I don't want to just be a skeptic dick this whole time, but like,
please.
But it's like even if plenty of other things, abnormal things happen in a random room where the alarm clock, blah blah blah, but you don't take note of those. It's like even if everyone is taking note of the strange things that happen here, it still reflects like the impact of that and the energy of that. Even if you're not like communicating a lot about the story to other people, like the way everyone treats an event like that, I think brushes off with lots of other people and just like makes everything about that stick out. And
any abnormality will be much louder to anyone who's now aware of the situation. So like,
we're just trying to understand that and trying to.
That is true. We often disregard many of the abnormalities that happen around us every day that don't quite provide evidence of the supernatural. Weird things happen all the time.
Because you have no confirmation of it. Too, it's like
why would that be related to supernatural?
Look at that. The two stories that I have, and they're not huge, but but because somebody else was there to confirm. Where a lot of life, we have no one else to back that up.
Right.
So
what was that sound? Did you hear that? Or
so it just passes by as normal.
Oh, God, that's so fun. Well, I mean, in LA, it's so hard to tell if where you live is haunted because every 5 seconds you're hearing someone either cook dinner or get fucked. So it's, and it sounds like ghosts. It's either, or, I don't know what is a ghost sound, but that was mac and cheese, by the way. Perhaps a lasagna if you're Italian. But no, this has been a thoroughly spooky podcast.
My hair was raised multiple times.
Oh, my hair was raised, but not the one on my head.
And we changed.
How's your pubic hair, Gabriel?
Pubic hair, what the fuck?
Most frightened of all of all my hairs.
Oh, we're talking about frightened hairs now?
Frightened hairs. Oh my gosh, you guys, you have been such great spooky co-hosts. I would like to give a big thank you to the ghost host on my right, Jonathan Hinman.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My mind's changed on almost everything.
No.
And of course, it wouldn't be a spooktacular evening without the vivacious Gabriel Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And
did you hear that?
Yeah, that was actually not Gabriel. That was a very bored ghost that just walked through here.
Right.
You might think that was one of us, but Nope.
Nope, not us. But as we do sign off tonight, I would like to remind you all to lock your doors, but they'll find you. The only door you should be worrying about is the one closest to the nearest church, because the dead are coming for us, ladies and gentlemen, and ghosts will not only rape you, but can paranormally change the size of their dick, and they always choose large. This has been Deep Balls with Brandon Rogers, Jonathan Hinman, and Gabriel Gonzalez. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.